The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed15 podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we will discuss the latest news and info that Feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. If it runs over, it's usually my fault. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15, we got you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, your green juice, whatever, kick back unless you're driving, and we'll tell you what you need to know but may have missed. We are your host. I am Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the inimitable and incomparable Katelyn Murray.
Hello. How's it going, Dan?
I'm good. Hey, we have a speaker.
We do indeed.
We did. Welcome, Mr. Johnson. We are happy to have you. Glad to hear you came right in with the idea of a CR, to keep things going so the various budget items can be handled. Katelyn, as you know, I'm a political geek. I'm especially heartened by the fact that it was a one ballot. I'd almost forgotten what those look like. So congratulations and welcome, and take care of our feds. Okay, I'm not wearing the black shirt, so don't put me back in black. Good for AC/DC songs, not for the podcast.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, we've got some exciting announcements for this week's episode. The 2024 COLA has been announced.
Indeed.
So we are looking at 3.2% for CSRS and Social Security, cost of living adjustment there, and a 2.2% cost of living adjustment for FERS. Now, these are some pretty impressive numbers. Actually, it's the third highest in a decade, behind the adjustments, of course, for 2022. So, of course, they're coming on the heels of 2022's 5.9% adjustment. And 2023's 8.7% adjustment. So Sure. They may look like small numbers, but they are actually the third highest in a decade. So the cost of living adjustment for FERS, just as a reminder, if you are retired and you are younger than 62, so 61 and younger, unless you retired on disability or you are under special provisions, you will not receive the COLA for FERS. So just kind of calling that out there. Now
that's an important point because people get pinched on that with MRA all the time. So if somebody goes out at 56 or 57, they could be going 6 years without a COLA. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, I brought that up. People laughed at me, Katelyn. They really did.
Right.
When they laughed. But now people are going, oh, wow, that could be bad.
Yeah, it would be pretty tough to be in that boat with 2022's 5.9% adjustment, 2023's 8.7%, and then 2024, 2.2%. So definitely something to think about. This is what we talk with clients about all day long at Serving Those Who Serve when they're making decisions around exactly when they should retire. This is a question that we actually get a whole lot with regard to the COLA in our practice. What if I retired in 2023? How does that work with the COLA? So basically it is prorated. So if you retired in January of 2023, you will get 11/12 of the 3.2% adjustment or the 2.2 adjustment if you're FERS. So basically you take that total number, the 2.2% adjustment, you divide it by 12, and each month that you were retired in the year counts towards that factor. So if you retired in February of 2023, you get 10/12 of the COLA because you were retired for 10 months of the year. Now, if you turned 62 this year, but you've been retired the full year, then you do get the full cost of living adjustment. So just to call that out. And as a reminder, that is with regard to FERS. The prorated stuff is with regard to FERS and CSRS. Social Security is not prorated. You get the full COLA no matter what. So you do get that full 3.2% if you are looking at Social Security there. So some good cost of living adjustments. It's great to see the the adjustment. It's great to see the numbers go up, but it's also kind of nice, looking at it from a different perspective, from a macroeconomics perspective, seeing that number kind of float down some from 2023 indicates, cost of living adjustment, obviously based off the CPI index, which is our tracker of inflation. That means that inflation is kind of floating down. We're getting things a little bit more under control, which is great to see coming off the heels of very high inflation in 2022 and 2023. So
fingers crossed.
We're headed in a good direction there. So.
Absolutely. Well, Katelyn, when we're talking about COLAs and for retirees, one of the ways that you get there is by retiring. Yeah. So hands down, number one question we get is serving this to serve. Hands down is, when can I retire? Okay. And that generally refers to what year, am I situated, that sort of thing. And as a full service fiduciary planning group, we're talking about those things all the time. Mm-hmm. But there's also the mechanical element of when you go in the year that you select.
Right.
And generally speaking, for FERS employees, it's usually end of, end of something. And so number one that we get and we hear all the time is end of the year.
December 31st, baby.
Yep. So for example, for this year, December 31st, you carry over the maximum amount of annual leave. And don't forget, you can carry over 240, but you can also save up all your leave from that year and add another 208 to it. And that's if you are regular FERS. If you're SES, the carryover is 720 for that lump sum payout. So that's always good. But what a lot of people don't take into consideration is that it leads for a very large surge of retirement claims and the backlog expands. Well, this year, Katelyn, we've got an unusual thing with the calendar where we've got a 27th pay period.
Ah.
So, for example, our feds could choose to go out 1/11 of 25 instead of 12/31/2024. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have some pros and cons to this. Pros would be maximum amount of annual leave still retained for the lump sum because the accrual leave stops for the year when that last 2-week pay period ends. So if that sneaks into the new year, you're still in it. Another pro, 8 additional days of pay. So, Katelyn, let me ask you this. What might an enterprising Fed be able to do with those 8 days of pay if they adjusted some things with their withholding right before the new year? What might they be able to do with that, Katelyn?
Might be able to max that TSP and get a few more dollars in there.
Absolutely. So that's a pro. Con is your first retirement check would be February 1st, not January 1st. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that is something to keep in mind. But those are not the only 2 dates that you may want to consider. Again, with FERS, end of any month, end of any 2-week pay period, works out well for you. And dates that are at the end of the month and on a Friday that is at the end of a 2-week pay period for 2024 are, would you like to hear them, Katelyn?
I would love to hear.
May 31st of 24.
Uh-huh.
June 29th of 24.
Uh-huh.
And November 30th of 24. And folks, if you want to do a deeper dive on this, head over to the Fed Zone. That's fed-zone.com. Type in benefits Ben, and this will pop up. Our man Ben Durkee wrote this up for you, and you can take a deeper dive on that to sort of sort out when you might want to go in the coming year.
Yeah, good information. Actually, I was just in a meeting the other day with a client who was kind of asking around like, oh, what's the best date to retire? And we were kind of talking through some of this. So it is definitely something that I know is kind of on the minds of our feds who are looking towards retirement imminently.
Sure.
So something to be aware of, crunching the numbers there on the 27 pay period year. And then this only happens, by the way, very rarely, right? I mean, I guess I shouldn't say very rarely, like 13, 14 years, did you say?
Sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of a bit of an eclipse. So if you are looking to retire in 2024, definitely worth, taking every advantage that you possibly can, which is what we're all about here at Serving Those Who Serve. So
absolutely. And going back to something that you touched on earlier, Katelyn.
Yeah.
Folks, this is a public service announcement. Be careful with MRA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because you just want to make sure that your MRA doesn't end up being minimized retirement assets. So you like that? You like the way I slipped that in there? So many people will get surprised by the fact that they don't have COLAs. So you go out at 56, again, 6 years, no COLAs. That's a big, big, big hit. And the other thing to remember, that FERS supplement, no COLAs. And so you can go an extended period. One of the things that I've heard over the course of my career, because I'm caught up on close to 40 years with this, is people in FERS will go, our COLAs aren't as good, because CSRS and Social Security gets the full CPI. Generally speaking, FERS gets CPI -1, which is still pretty close. Well, don't forget, FERS people, a chunk of your retirement benefit is Social Security.
Exactly.
So you could have a situation where half gets a full CPI and half gets close. Mm-hmm. But that's where the rest of the planning comes in. Decisions that you make about maximizing your TSP along the way, having the right allocation in there. And if these terminologies just start getting your head spinning, hit our webinars. They are free. And Katelyn, I heard something this week that just warmed my heart. A gentleman told me that at his agency, mm-hmm. they had approved that our webinars could be watched while on duty.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. And that's great.
That meant the world to me because we've done, folks, we have a full service fiduciary financial planning practice. We don't talk about that in the webinars.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody thinks I'm nuts because we don't talk about it in the webinars. What we wanted to do was we wanted this to be a virtuous cycle about the fact that planning practice gives us a unique perspective for bringing training, but also that we plow earnings back into producing all this free content. Feds can come any time of day, any time of night, grab free stuff, go, never talk to me. I won't even know what happened. So people are convincing me they're crazy or an idiot. No, we wanted to get it right. We wanted it to be a situation where those webinars are closing the gap for people. So nobody's going out without the ability to understand how things work. So
definitely. Yeah.
Grab that stuff and take advantage of it. Yep.
And like we say in the webinars, you shouldn't retire. You should make sure that you get all of your questions answered before you retire. Definitely it's one of those situations where you definitely want to measure twice, cut once, and definitely look before you leap. Because there's a lot of different factors, that like with the MRA that, you don't even think about, right? You're at MRA, you can retire, but should you? And kind of how does all that factor in? So just like waiting till 62 for the 1.1 times pension multiplier, all of these different kind of pieces of the puzzle that fit together. And if you need somebody to help you navigate it, we're here to help. So I 100%. Think that is all that's on our docket for today.
I think you're right.
We will absolutely be back next week to bring you all the latest updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
And be sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay. You're going to make an old man happy when you do it, but you're also going to help yourself stay in touch, and be sure to share it with your friends and colleagues. They will thank you for it.
Absolutely. And for more information on the topics covered in today's show, I know we mentioned earlier, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. As Dan mentioned, there is a ton of free information there that we are just making sure is available for Feds. There's not a paywall, anything like that. You can access it. Definitely subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every single week so that you never miss a beat.
And do not forget those free webinars. There's a ton of them. Specifically, by the time this one goes up, 2 that you really should catch your eye. We've got our tax planning webinar for Feds webinar on the 14th of November from 11 until 2. And then followed the very next day by our incredibly popular Understanding Thrift Savings Plan for federal employees on the 15th from 1 until 4. Head over to STWServe.com, click that button for webinars. There's a whole menu there. Sign up for one, sign up for all. they're here to help you.
Absolutely. And if you prefer a one-on-one approach, feel free to reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at askstws@stwserve.com. We'd be happy to talk with you.
Indeed.
All right, folks, I think that is it. Thank you so much for listening to the Fed 15. I am Katelyn Murray.
And I am Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week.
Next week.
Take care.